Alright, that looks relatively green, so let's get started. And welcome once again to D&D in Hindsight, where something something 3-5 books, I don't know, we're on Libris Mortis, which is bad Latin, but is the undead book.
Yeah, it's the Book of the Dead.
Yep, nope, the undead.
I mean, you have to become undead before you can become... Or you have to become dead before you can become undead.
Yep.
You might be able to skip a step, depends on how the undead is made.
No, Skeleton Warrior says otherwise.
But yeah.
I'm not sure I trust Skeleton Warriors. Ames.
I don't know, that name seems trustworthy.
Skeleton and a warrior seems simple enough to me.
Yep. Hey, case, I'm Vincent.
I'm the Krampus.
I'm Shiv.
I'm Hunter Grain.
And I cut everyone off before somebody can make a Skeleton Man joke.
Well, what part's the skeleton?
The skeleton part.
The skeleton part. Yeah.
There we
Yeah, but any case, Libris Mortis. So, first and foremost, as a warning up front, there are some graphic images and concepts of ick that involve deadish things in this book. I didn't present too much of it, but just throwing that out there. It is a book dealing with undead, what do you want? But yeah.
Undead new.
But yeah, this is akin to, but very different than the Draconomicon. It doesn't live up to the Draconomicon, but that's a high bar. I wouldn't expect any book to do that. Yeah, but yeah, it is an exploration of undead, how to use them in campaign, etc., etc. Basically, this book, undead, go. So yeah, starting with all about undead. The various ideas, origins of undeath, basically in 3-5, negative energy, necromantic magics, something, insert the blank. There's a bunch of different types of undead, so their origins do kind of vary from spot to spot a little bit.
Sometimes it's a disease.
Sometimes it's a disease. Sometimes it's making a deal with some unknown evil that something, and then you eventually end up in the demi-plane of dread.
Sometimes it involves stealing the crystal that your entire populace relies on for its clean, limitless energy, and in doing so, unleashes a terrible curse that turns everyone into a skeleton man.
What about Skin Man?
No, they're not skin warriors, they're skeleton warriors. Big difference.
Yeah, Skinman's a villain.
Yep.
Ooh,
in disguise.
Skin Man. Damn it.
A Skeleton Man sees through his plan with his skeleton eyes.
Skeleton eyes.
Of course.
Skeleton Man.
Okay, we're just gonna get it all out of the way.
You say we're gonna get it all the way here.
Good luck.
Yep. So in any case, at the front is this one variable that takes up an entire page apropos of nothing for haunting presences. It's like, hey, do you want your dead to haunt a place? There's probably more rules than you need for that. Just fuck with your players. That's pretty much all you really need to do if you want to do some type of haunting or another. But it's at least something they thought of. Yeah. But then gets into like undead physiology, kind of the ideas behind everything that makes up undead, negative energy, etc., etc. Then this fun little chart, the undead diet. Yeah, so depending on the type of undead, they may eat absolutely nothing. Like zombies, strangely enough, don't actually eat anything, in spite being zombies. Or rather, don't have to eat anything, I should say. Same with skeletons. On the other hand, you start getting to the more esoteric undead, like vampires, obviously. They need blood. Technically, they need blood and life force. Life force is any type of ability drain, so which happens when they drink blood anyways. So
well, they have an inescapable craving for blood, or for a life force, but they have to blood.
Yeah, the thing is, they get them both at the same time. Yep. So the basics of it is, if they have an inescapable craving, they will eventually, this is in the DM purview, but they will eventually, at some point, if they do not get that craving, just go into frenzy and need to feed. Diet dependent, obviously they need to eat that stuff or they're going to just die. Yeah, it actually describes over here. Just diet dependent, undead hunger, undead healing. So in 3.5, they're from the negative energy plane, so healing is actually kind of reversed on them. There's the clerk line of inflict spells is basically their healing spells, and healing spells are effectively the inflicts for them. Yep. Similarly, the big spells heal and harm are effectively inverted, except for the fact that harm doesn't have any status condition clearing effects, mostly because undead are immune to all those status conditions anyways. Spawn, again, this is very individualized for the undead. This has one of my favorite pictures in the book, which is the bored Lich. It's like after a millennium, so Lich has a very little left to learn. It's just, I've read this book 37 times. Yeah. Also, ideas for undead in society, like sometimes undead are just separate from society, sometimes they're infiltrators like vampires, and sometimes they'll be open members of society depending on what the civilization is. Usually an evil civilization, but not always, will have undead around. Like Sigil, Sigil will often have undead around. They have various rules and regulations for doing that. Like, a vampire can't just visit Sigil and prey upon the citizens. They basically have to show that they have effectively have livestock in order to feed themselves while they're there. Stuff like that. Now we get into the undead gods in this book. Which includes more new gods than not, at least. And there's not that many, so we'll go over them. So, Afflux, neutral evil, deity who is about seeking knowledge in flesh and blood by sacrificing and studying the living. Dorasane, the king of ghouls, chaotic evil, demigod with his own abyssal lair, known as the king of the ghouls, whose philosophy is to exist, is to eat, and to fully experience it requires the consumption of prey, preferably sentient. He was once a vassal of Orcus, but was subdued by and made a vassal of Yunogu, the demon lord who worshipped gnolls, until Yunogu lost control of his lair, and now he just does his own thing, which is mostly eat people. Evening Glory, who plays straight into that warning at the beginning. This is the only non-evil deity in this book. She believes in eternal love that transcends life. Literally. I will not go into any more details at this time. Let's see. Nerul here. Main evil death deity in Greyhawk. Looks like the Grim Reaper. Hates life. Exactly what you expect of him. And the final deity in the book, Orcus. The demon prince of undead who died, came back, became a god with a different name, stopped being one, became himself again. He has the most cultists of any demon prince and uses the undead, but he hates them, along with the living and everything else. He just wants everything to go away, basically. We'll get into Orcus more probably, or we'll definitely get into Orcus more much later when we get to Hordes of the Abyss. Demons have their own books, so.
Yep.
Let's see. Fighting undead. Just various information on fighting undead and defensive tactics, which is probably the most interesting part. As a creature type, undead probably have the most varied types of attacks that they can actually inflict on player characters, making them probably the most annoying ones to actually try and deal with in various ways. Because they might cause ability damage or drain. They sometimes have death effects. Sometimes they spread diseases like mommy rot. Sometimes they have energy drain, often, which is what ghosts do. They inflict negative levels on you. Sometimes they inflict fear. Liches and ghouls can paralyze, which basically means if you fail to save, you're out of combat and possibly dead. Paralyzed sucks as a condition, and the duration on their paralyzes is extreme.
Prepared.
Yeah.
Kill issue.
Also incorporeal, which is a really annoying thing to deal with as well, because if you don't have a magic weapon, you can't hurt them. Most player characters, by the time they encounter an incorporeal undead, are probably going to have a magic weapon. At which point you have a 50% chance.
Weapon, you only have 50% chance to do it. Yep.
Yeah.
So you have Ghost Touch.
That's why you have Ghost Touch. If you know you're dealing with undead. Or with ghosts, rather. You know you're dealing with undead, that doesn't narrow it down. That's the real thing. generally, you can expect, A, you can't do precision damage to them. That's just straightforward. And B, they're not... comparatively do not have as much hit points per hit die, more or less, but that doesn't really mean as much. But you, as far as what you could be encountering when you encounter undead, this can be anything from like a master vampire of eldritch power or a horde of fucking skeletons. It varies wildly in range of what you're going to encounter and how they're going to attack you. Which under 3.5 almost means, like, if you don't have a clerk in the party, you're going to have problems dealing with any damage they do as well, because dealing with energy drain and ability drain is basically, you need restorations.
Or weeks of downtime.
Or weeks of downtime. Yeah, you recover 1 point of ability damage in each stat per day. And ability drain... does ability drain even recover normally?
Oh, there's the ability drain section right there.
That's a good question.
But I think that's just talking about defense.
Yeah, it's talking about defensive of it. Wait up, I have the rules compendium. Okay, as far as I can tell, no, it does not. Yeah, ability damage comes back naturally. Ability drain does not. You have to heal it.
Ability drain can also just straight up kill you.
It can also just straight up kill you. I think ability damage could technically kill you.
The energy drain and negative levels become permanent after 24 hours if you don't make a fortitude save.
Yeah. It's also very annoying. But yeah, knowing that you're fighting undead isn't really enough to prepare for them. You kind of have to know what types of undead. And if the types of undead are varied, then you might be extra fucked. But yeah. Enough of the more vague stuff, onto the character options. Starting with a feat section. So, there's two conceits when it comes to character building in this book. Either you're making things to fight undead, or you're making things that are undead and or make undead. How much that will actually fly in the second one will fly in a campaign varies on what type of campaign you're doing. If you're doing an evil campaign, you can generally get away with that. If you're not doing an evil campaign, you might be able to run like a necromancer or a ghoul, but that is very much a talk to the DM. And to some extent, I'm working under the assumption that it's kind of a thing the player wants to do. If the DM wants to do it, the DM can do whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah,
and
the DM can do whatever wants.
And actually, like, going through the full rigmarole of building a character is not something I actually recommend. You might want to look through this section for, like, ideas of stuff to do that would actually be interesting for encounters. But you don't really have to go to as much effort as 3.5 assumes you will with every single NPC. Because no one has time for that shit. It's also just overbuilt. But yeah. As for the more interesting feats, starting with Corpse Crafter, which I didn't really go over create undead because why would I really? It's undead are almost always NPCs, and it's actually just not really that great an option. But basically, you shove onyx gems into bodies and you make undead. The spell creates a certain amount of hit dice. You can control like 4 hit dice per level when it comes to the create undead spell. Clerks that can rebuke can also get a high enough result to start commanding undead. That one gives them a different limit, a number of undead equal to their own hit dice. Basically, you have your level limits the amount of undead you can control. Yeah. And if you want to control a swarm of skeletons, for the most part, they're not actually that useful to a player character. Because a swarm of skeletons ain't going to hit shit, they're going to die very quickly, and they cost you money. They don't cost you that much money per skeleton, but it does add up when, like, an enemy mage casts a fireball on them, or dragon just breathes on them, they all die.
Yeah, I mean, you're breaking a horde of skeletons to terrorize a town, not to go fight other strong.
Yeah. But the Corpse Crafter feats are basically based around, like, trying to make those better. Now, mind you, you can just try and make, or you can make higher tier undead those kind of will work a little bit better, but again, results will vary a lot. But yeah, Corpse Crafter is basically just about improving the undead you make, or the entire line, basically. And this is where it can also become interesting for a DM. Like, you could act, if you're throwing a bunch of zombies at them, you're throwing a bunch of zombies at them. But let's say the guy making the zombies had like Corpse Crafter, and let's ignore most of the other stuff, but like Death Chill is like, hey, here's some cold zombies, or hard fleshed, some more resilient tanky zombies that can get in the way, or this one, which Destruction Retribution, or hey, these ones explode when you kill them.
Yeah, exploding zombies. That also that does negative energy explosions. They also heal the other zombies.
Yes.
Also, Corpse Crafters sounds like the kind of place you'd go to in the mall to customize your undead.
Go to Corpse Crafters.
Same
I mean,
like
Corpse Crafters realistically augment summoning, but for summoning creating undead.
Yeah. Corpse Crafters, next to the Stitch and Bitch.
Build-A-Being.
Yep. Yeah, other things in this. Other things in this section, let's see. Energize, which is do extra damage to undead, but less damage to non-undead, which isn't bad for like one level higher if you know you're fighting undead in the campaign. Yep. It's just a good feat. Conversely, Enervate, which, while it is 2 levels higher, it is 2 levels higher for 50% damage, which is not bad at all. Versus living creatures, which is the vast majority of what you're going to fight. Outsiders are still, yeah, the outsiders are still living creatures. A devil is still a living creature.
Yep.
Let's see. Fell Frighten. Anything you damage is just straight up shaken. In of itself, shaken, not that impressive a debuff, but if you can get shaken on it from like 2 different things, that becomes frightened, and then they're just running away. They're not doing anything. So it is always kind of it's kind of a crowd control to kind of keep an eye on. Fell Weaken, same idea. If you do damage, it's -4 strength straight up, which is not a terrible debuff, especially since neither of these have a save attached, and it's only like 1 spell slot level higher. Improved Toughness is actually in here, which was nice to see. Improved Toughness is just straight up 1 hit point per level.
Yep.
Technically has a base fortitude save. It's not great, but it's better than Toughness, because it's hard not to be. Let's see. Our things. Necropotent. Which is basically a fighter feat for +4 damage. No, the weapon specializations. There's 2 weapon specializations. They both have fighter as a prerequisite.
Is that? Yeah.
They're normally just +2 damage each. +4, and are kind of meh. Like, they're fine if you're just going straight fighter for whatever reason, but +4 damage, however, on a feat is just plain good. If you're straight up playing an undead campaign, this is actually a legitimately good feat for a fighter pickup. Requiem. So bardic music is mind affecting, and undead are immune to mind affecting normally. Requiem actually lets you affect undead. This is also one of those feats that remind you of how the actual game works. Let's see. Sacred Vengeance. Free action, spend a turn attempt. You just do 2d6 extra damage with melee attacks against undead for the round. This lives in the same space as Divine Might, but they both stack with each other if you really want them to, since they're both free actions. And this is more damage if you are fighting undead, so it is technically a little bit better. Undead leadership, it's specialized leadership for undead. The main thing is your leadership score is treated as a bit higher. This is the other way to get undead to be following you, I guess. And Tomb Tainted Soul, which is here not because it's good, but because I actually just like it from a flavor perspective. So the idea of it is it kind of turns you into a quasi undead as you take the feats. But at the end of every single one of the feats past Tomb Tainted Soul, it actually has like a little thing that happens to your character. So for Tomb-born Fortitude, for example, your skin takes on a pallor texture of a dead creature and your race. Or of your race, or for Tomb-born Vitality here, your body grows unnaturally thin, your flesh stretching tightly over your bones to give you freakish skeletal appearance. Just, I like that nice little extra flavor attached to feats like that.
Yeah.
Just also in here is monstrous feats, which are obviously undead flavored. Let's like contagious paralysis here, which any creature paralyzed by your special attack you can will confer to anything else touching it. Which I found as this is one of those feats that actually just gives me random stupid ideas. So it's like, okay, so anyone who touches this can now give my paralyzed to anything else they touch. So I just need to be able to throw them. Okay, so there was fling enemy in the. So we get fling enemy from the Races of Stone book. All right, so I need to be a ghoul Goliath.
So we have like a Goliath Lich.
A Goliath.
Ghouls
who
paralyzed as
throw-
well. Ghouls paralyzed as well, and that's not going to take me forever to get into.
Who throws their bag of rats, pulls out rats, throws.
Ah, there we go.
Why do you have a bag of paralyzed rats? All you're about to find out.
Also, here's approved paralysis, which is a +4 after you've already done ability focus, which is a +2. So this is +6. Yeah, by the time you're done doing this, you have a +6 difficulty on the Yeah, nothing's passing that save. Corrupted Wild Shape, another feat that reminds me of how rules work, because apparently Undead can't actually Wild Shape normally. It only works on living things because it's a polymorph effect.
Yep.
Let's see. And this line, Daunting Presence. It's another feat that lets you shake in things as a standard action in a different way. There's a strange proliferation of these feats. But more importantly, it's prerequisite for Deathmaster, which is just straight up on a crit, it becomes shaken, and Eviscerator, which straight up on a crit, also the things nearby become shaken. Which, if you're already an undead that causes fear in a different way, this will make it frightened, so that's kind of a neat little thing. And Life Bond, which is probably one of the strongest feats any undead can take, especially if you're a player character undead, so whenever the chosen undead is within 60 feet, they gain a +4 bonus on their turn resistance and a +2 bonus on all saves. This stacks. So if you have a standard player, or if you're a player character in a standard party of 4 people, you take this feat 3 times, it is a +6 on all your saves, and you'll never have to worry about being turned because it's like a +12 turn resistance. Yep. Just trust me on the math on that. I'm not going to go into how turn undead works. I barely understand it half the time anyways, and no one usually uses
turn
it.
undead for
No one uses turn undead for turn undead anyways. And yeah, also going over undead in the party, which I can also go over undead in the party. Yeah, it's fine. From a pure mechanical standpoint and game balance standpoint, undead in the party are pretty fine. Undead in 3.5 have a particularly strong amount of immunities to almost fucking everything, but they also have like no hit points. Since they don't actually add con to hit points, they have just the base hit die of whatever class they are. And the racial hit die on undead is a D12, which kind of helps with their racial hit dice. But they're going to lag behind as they gain levels when it comes to HP. Now, granted, they can't be crit, but that's not usually where most of your damage comes from on a player character either. It's just incremental damage.
Yeah, crits are nice bonuses when they happen, not your primary damage pumps.
Yeah. Now, ironically, it also makes undead some of the best things to fight other undead with, because they are basically immune to all of the tricks of undead.
It does just become a slap fight.
Yeah. Basic level adjustments and equivalent levels for whatever undead you're running. And a related note: do not let a player character run a vampire for the reason of just keeping keeping him from harming himself. Like seriously, there's a +8 level adjustment on vampires for.
Vampires get a lot of stuff.
Vampires get a lot of stuff.
Vampires, one of the few things that the level adjustment does make sense.
It makes sense. They do get a lot of stuff, you're still going to, as a level 9 character, as a vampire, you are still going to lag behind the party severely with your one class level.
It's more of how many things we have seen where it's like, this has a level adjustment for some reason. Vampire's like, no, there's a reason.
Oh no, it has a level adjustment. I'm not sure +8 is completely correct, and it's one of those weird ones where the weird part is usually the level adjustment makes more sense closer to a low level and less at a high level. This one's almost the opposite.
Yeah.
Also, undead monster classes, which are akin to monster classes, except there's this little line right here. If a character has no class levels, basically when they enter an undead monster class, i.e. they get turned into an undead. If they didn't have any class levels, they simply gain one level of the appropriate undead class and may multiclass freely between the undead class and normal class levels. In other words, if you're making a character from scratch, the start of their background is they became you could start their background as they became an undead, then they started actually going into classes. So they don't actually have to go all the way through the monster class.
Yep.
The undead monster classes are actually designed in a way where that doesn't make. If you try to actually like eliminate the you can't multi-class out of the monster class rules with the monster classes that they were originally designed, you're going to run into problems. A lot of them were actually like more front-loaded with their stat bonuses. The undead monster classes in this book are perfectly fine to multi-class out of. They are much more balanced over the levels of where they get their stat adjustments. Now, how viable any of these undead are in a party is a completely different matter. I've mentioned ghouls a few times. They are kind of viable and kind of not. As what you get is like +2 dex, +2 wisdom, for 8, +1 natural armor, a bite for a d4, and +2 turn resistance. That's for your first hit die, which is no loss from level adjustment. If you don't mind eating like 1 loss of level effectively, you get claw attacks. Your claw bites can now actually paralyze and +2 strength, which isn't bad for a level loss. And then you can actually take your second racial to hit die for some more natural armor and some int, I guess. That one is less tempting, but it's still fine. The bigger problem with ghouls, however, is their die dependent is flesh. By flesh, they mean flesh of the living. Still living?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, that is something you can... In like an evil campaign, again, whatever, and or if your party is just going to be a bunch of undead, blah, blah, blah. If you're trying to actually, like, run around with the normal dungeon delving adventurers, it's still doable.
This is what you have a bag of rats for. Doesn't say flesh.
That's your adventurer's kit for an undead player, is the bag of rats. Need to find some traps? Bag of rats.
Yeah, no one says sentience or anything like that. You can
there is that
munch
at least.
away
It
on
is
animals.
just like you can munch away on animals. In combat, if you bite someone, that counts
That
well
works.
enough. Yeah.
Good news, guys. We're putting the rat back in rations.
Your party, if they're not entirely evil, may be like, "Hey, dude, can you stop eating the goblins that we're trying to fight?" It's kind of
No.
messed up.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand, but come on, seriously.
Now, as far as like going back into town and not being, murdered because you're a ghoul running around, you
Oh,
don't like
nothing to do about
that's where you're going to run into your actual problems. You basically need someone else to do all your shopping for you. Let's
Not
see.
bring you into town. Last time you came into town, you diseased everyone.
You don't. No. Ghouls don't do
Yeah.
disease. They just do paralyze.
You get ghoul fever, level 5.
Oh, you get ghoul fever level 5. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So those
Ghouls
it's
have
fine.
ghoul fever.
That's right. They do have ghoul fever, but you don't if you
Stop
don't go to
level
level
4.
5. Yeah, exactly. You stop at level 4 or level 3 for all it matters. Level 4 is pretty tempting because that's a long
The better
duration
paralysis.
Yeah.
Yeah. D4 plus 1 round as opposed to 1 round.
Yeah. The
And
bite
a bite.
damage. Yeah, the bite damage and charisma is whatever, but the long duration paralysis is actually Let's see. As for the Morags, strangely enough, if it wasn't for the fact that you look like fucking that, this is actually one of the more interesting options. Just like you get a full 2 hit dice before you even get any level adjustment, and anything past that is a who cares. So it's like you could probably stop after 2 levels, honestly. It's like
It's a skeleton with a big worm thing in it.
Just gotta wear a cloak at all times. Natural slam attack's also kind of nice. Yeah, it takes you a while to get anything that's more of an interesting class feature. On the bright side, there's no diet anything, so you don't really have to worry about that. Also note this is like a 20 level monster class.
Yep.
Mummy! Also fairly...
Khufu?
Huh?
Khufu, the mummy.
Yeah. Oddly enough, probably one of the more straightforward ones as to why it would just be walking around with a party in a strange way, but...
I mean, depending on what you're setting, it could be just be like, yeah, you're in like an Egyptian setting. There's just
Yeah.
a mummy. People might revere him.
Yeah.
Just chilling out.
And it's probably the second most compatible with just a random adventuring party. Like, the vampire spawn's obviously the most compatible, simply because it's...
That's Mummy Jim.
Yeah.
He's fine. Leave him alone.
That said, it's probably also one of the more lackluster ones, because it's like, you got a slam, which is okay, +2 natural armor, which is okay, +2 strength, -4 int is kind of painful, but it's workable enough. As for what you get, and you get full 2 levels before you actually start having to eat what's called level adjustment, or equivalent level adjustment, effectively.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's perfectly workable. As a sorcerer, I wouldn't really recommend that. That would be the only thing.
Well, as a caster, I wouldn't recommend.
Yeah. As a caster in general for any of these, I wouldn't recommend. That's not really their strong suits.
You're not getting cast models, yeah.
You're also getting like a
these...
D4 hit die on something that has no con bonus.
Yeah. You are getting like, for casters, dude. Just dead.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you want to be like a fighter, you get decent natural armor, a bunch of strength increases, just flat DR for being a mummy.
Oh, right. I also forgot one other flaw that undead have. They die at 0 hit points.
Yep.
There's no line on the ground trying to get back up. They're just dead. Let's see. And the aforementioned vampire spawn with a diet of drinking blood, which, not the hardest thing in the world. Their big advantage, really, when it comes to adventuring, is that they basically look human because they're vampires.
Yep.
And some way it's
Played
like
Baldur's Gate 3, you're familiar with the concept.
Yeah. And similarly, they have reasonable stats for being a vampire. Blood drain, which their bite attack basically deals con damage as well, which is not bad at all. Con drain, actually, which also gives them temporary hit points. So, let's see. Or not the bite attack. They actually have to...
They have to grapple.
They have to grapple, but yeah. They just straight up have spider climb, which is nice. Wait, do they just... Or they gain that later?
They gain it. Level 3.
Okay, they gain it at level 3. Yeah. Yeah, which is not bad, actually, considering... Might actually be worth going to level 3, just having spider climb on anything that... if you're doing, like, a melee of one sort or another, it's just nice to just a nice feature to have. Ignore most movement problems.
Yep.
Let's see. And finally, whites. Okay, so whites are kind of a weird one when it comes to their diet and their undead monster class, because they have an inescapable craving for life force, which means they have an inescapable craving to do energy drain to things.
They don't get to level 8.
Yep. So either you don't have to worry about it until level 8.
Or your DM is going to be fucking you over.
Or levels 1 through 7 are going to be hell.
It means you're basically in frenzy until you can somehow get to level 8. Which again, if you're also using this thing to just multi-class out of, and your DM does not hate you. Like, they are actually pretty modest when it comes to the effects of this anyways. So, it's like, +2 dex, they get a D4 slam, dark vision, I guess, a little bit better at moving silently. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah. So they don't get too much anyways.
The unique features, they pretty much get solely at 8.
Yes, all their unique features are at 8.
Here's a couple stat bonuses.
Yeah.
Here's special armor.
And mechanically speaking, if I'm taking white, I'm doing this. I'm probably multi-classing out at level 1 or 2 or 3. Probably 1, honestly. Those aren't even good levels. That's not worth the level adjustment.
Well, I mean, the level adjustment exists entirely because of energy drain and great
Yeah.
spawn.
Yeah, these are the only thing you really want is the one at the end, because like every single one of these like dead levels is just +1 natural armor. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, prestige classes. Okay. Pretty much what you expect from this book is either these are prestige classes for NPCs, kind of, sort of, or prestige classes for fighting undead. Death's Chosen, if you're depending on, or for esoteric player character parties, Death's Chosen, however, no matter what you're doing or what your purpose is, this is a complete waste of space and time to read. This is a living server undead. They gain immunity to what its master does as the master desires. Some minor bonuses around his master, some fluffy things. It's a 3-level class. This is so on the who cares scale. Even in the concept, they just didn't do anything with it. It's like, these are a lot of words for not terribly much. Yep. Like, let's see. You can sleep for 2 hours without... When is this ever going to come up for an NPC? And I don't think any PC cares. It's... But yeah. Dirt Singer. A bard-like class that AoE debuffs, will saves, attack and damage rolls all at the same time. There's no save on that. It's give undead turn resistance, confuse someone, do strength and dex damage, and animate a corpse as a loyal ally for as long as they're performing. All the negative effects on...
There is a save against the debuff.
Oh, there is a save against the debuff. Sorry.
Yeah, a successful will save.
Yes.
Does negate the effect.
I didn't make my notes less Spartan. Also interesting is the saves in this one are 10 plus their ranks and perform. I've seen this on other bard prestige classes. It is a way for them to do save DCs, which is kind of interesting. Not necessarily great, but interesting. It does keep scaling though, so past the prestige class. Let's see. Master of Radiance. A divine caster class that gives up a level of casting for an aura that debuffs aura the debuffs undead. I really need to write my notes better. Aura debuffs undead and eventually lets them cast Searing Light and Sunbeam as much as they want.
If you know you're fighting undead, just constant Sunbeam can be pretty.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, both of these are actually pretty solid damage spells versus undead. They're kind of lackluster versus anything else. But again, if you're taking this prestige class, it's because you're in an undead campaign, almost certainly. Especially if it's a vampire campaign, because there's a lot of light that you're emitting here. It.
Yep.
Yeah, things eventually. Bright light does even more damage. Yeah. Master of Shrouds. Divine prestige class based around summoning undead with a unique ability to summon incorporeal undead as a class ability. Again, you lose a level, but yeah, this is generally stuff you can't normally summon. Yeah, again, that's fine for spellcasters. A level is generally acceptable. When you start getting into multiple levels, then it actually kind of has to make up for it with class features.
As long as you're not losing 9th level spells, typically.
Yeah. Let's see. Pale Master. Arcane prestige class that gives up a level for some undead control effects and grafting undead parts onto themselves for fun and profit.
Yep.
Also, it has the deadest of dead levels. Here's this first level where you gain...
It does have level 1.
Yeah.
You get +2 your will save.
They could have at least put animate dead on that level. I don't...
But you eventually basically get like all the undead immunities. Like Deathless Master level 10 is immune to poison, sleep, paralysis, death effects, critical hits, ability drain, energy drain, damage to your physical scores.
Yeah.
Like you
You
still have
get
to eat,
dark
breathe.
vision.
You still have to eat, breathe, and sleep, but
You also get
You get dark vision, which is not a very common racial thing in 3.5.
no, it's not as common. Generally, so dark vision is common in 5th edition because there's no low light vision. Low light vision is generally fairly common among anything that not human, but they kind of got blended together into one ability. That's why dark vision is so common in 5th edition.
That makes sense.
It is honestly
they also get armor, if I remember correctly.
Sort of. They get undead graphs. So some of those are actually, I believe, armor.
Yeah, the undead armor has reduced spell failure.
Yeah. Undead graphs will go over later, but it is exactly what the fuck it sounds like. You graft pieces of undead onto you.
Yep.
Let's see.
A perfectly reasonable reaction.
Yep.
It's like that guy who grafted Tyrannid's parts onto himself.
No. This is more sane than that somehow.
I was going to say it's the second level. It's the same level of rational.
You're all just being haters.
Your arm wants to kill you.
Let's see, Sacred Purifier. Another cleric prestige class that gives up a level to get a greater turning and the ability to spend turning attempts to damage undead outright. Because you decided to not read the turning rules. However, you have greater turning, so you're going to read the turning rules. Basically, greater turning is exactly like a norm. So normally on a turning attempt, you have like 2 tiers of success. Like a normal success will make the undead run away. A high enough success will just straight up destroy them. Greater turning is you just straight up destroy them. On any success. You only normally get with the sun domain. This one just gives you an extra use of it. If you have the sun domain. Beyond that, like, yep, it has class features. Again, you're only giving up like 1 level of spellcasting. That's perfectly fine if you're in an undead campaign. If you're on an undead campaign, then not terribly going to do much with this.
Yeah.
Let's see. And True Necromancer. Hybrid caster class that effectively loses 2 more levels from each of the classes over the course of its 14 levels, because it's very hard to see because of how they do this, but occasionally it does this staggered, like you get arcane and then divine, but then
both then arcane, then
divine.
The rest of it.
And the rest are, yeah. Extremely focused on necromancy and undead creation with a dash of other flavorful stuff. It is pretty much what you expect from a class called True Necromancer.
Yep. It actually still lets you do like 1 level and 1. You can do a 1-5-14 build to still get 9th level in one of the schools, and then have 13 levels in the other. Caster levels in the other, so that's a big deal.
I don't think you can. Yeah, because you have to have Summon Undead 2 as a divine spell and Command Undead as an arcane. I'm pretty sure they're both level 3 spells. I think it was a very specific build. Or level 2 spells, rather. Because I remember being a very specific build. I think at 14 you end up as a level 20 character. Huh?
I'll find some way to finagle it.
I mean, yeah, probably. I'm trying to think of it myself.
Okay, are there any races that get
Oh god.
Summon Undead or Command Undead? How did 3.5 treat spell-like abilities?
They
For the purposes of prerequisites?
They wouldn't be considered spells.
I know Pathfinder though.
I think it does.
Around some weird stuff with Pathfinder.
Pathfinder, they would consider them spells. Summon Undead, you might be screwed. Summon Undead is in this book. So, assuming my hard drive's... Unfortunately, it's still on my external hard drive, so I still have to wait for it to spin up. I need to get like a solid state external.
Yeah.
Need to replace this one anyways. Alright, so is Summon Undead on the Sorcerer Wizard list? It is. Okay, so if you had Summon Undead as a spell-like ability, it would be an arcane spell-like ability.
Spell. But if you get Command Undead as a spell-like ability,
Command Undead would be fine.
Then, because then you could do Cleric 3, whatever, like one wizard or sorcerer, and then end up getting Command Undead as a hurricane spell that way.
Yeah. You're also more likely... I don't think they exist, but if they do exist at all, or if a race exists at all with with a spell-like ability of one of these two, it's going to be Command Undead, because Summon Undead is from this book.
Yeah.
Let's see. But yeah, moving on, moving on to some much more useless things. Here's the Undead Prestige classes. No player character is going to really ever want to touch these because they are either bad or way too narrow.
You already have to be playing an incorporeal undead, that first one.
Any of you are, it's just not that great. Let's see, it makes it go slightly better, but its best feature is probably easy to take. Is an easy to take feat. It is literally just this ghostly grass feat, where you can use corporeal
take
things.
3 levels to get this feat. You can just take.
Now you get the feat regardless of what your charisma is. Okay, so if you're playing an undead or if you're playing a ghost as a PC, you're going to have a high charisma because that's their defensive stat.
Uh-huh.
They also don't have a strength or a
God.
So they only have 4 stats anyway.
You only got 2 to work with.
Yeah.
Or have 4 stats to work with.
Let's see. Lurking Terror. Roughly the easiest of these classes for PC, but you have to find a racial ability you want to enhance the DC of on an undead without horrific level adjustment to make something functional. Also, it has item plate sight. Yeah, because Deathly Power is basically enhance the DC of something.
Class level.
Yeah, by class level. Yeah, so it's going to be by 3 effectively. I think was. Yeah.
Why would you open with that? Why are you automatically being an asshole?
What now?
Their example for Deathly Power is a vampiric Medusa's petrifying gay. Not just a vampire's bite, just we made a Medusa a vampire as well. Let's increase the DC of its petrification.
Okay.
Really stretching for an example there when you could use any base undead ability.
No, we're going to create something else. Yeah, you could just use Ghoul. Ghoul literally just has a petrify or paralyze. We've been over this.
Sure does.
Let's see, Master Vampire. This is something that a PC will never have because you have to be a true vampire for it. This is about as NPC a class gets, thanks to needing to be a true vampire with its great plus 8 level adjustment. It's more vampire spawning as well as some caster levels. Indeed, Nova. And finally, Tomb Warden. Serves itself to protecting a resting place that is just what it does, and none of its abilities work anywhere else. So if your campaign is taking place in one tomb in specific, this is fine. Otherwise, it's basically 3 dead levels.
But you become immune to turning and rebuke.
In that place.
Oh,
it's perfectly great if your entire campaign takes place in one tomb. Can I consider the material plane a single tomb?
Can I consider the place I'm protecting a box of dirt the party carries around with it?
I made the place I'm protecting into a pair of sandals that I'm always wearing.
It's like that whole Highlander thing where he's always on holy ground.
Yeah.
There's lots of dirt in his shoes. The DM slaps the taste out of his mouth.
Does he? I'm actually trying to figure out whether this is even that bad.
Yes, for choosing to do, not because it's overpowered.
It is silly, but
the length that that PC is going through just for this class.
Think before you make a character.
Look, my tomb is the world.
Ah, you got a tomb world.
All right, so on to spells. As I try to figure out whether that would even be broken, it's like, no, not really. It's dumb, but it's not broken.
Yeah.
All right. Spells in this book are exactly what you can imagine. It's either undead-themed stuff or stuff for making and or summoning undead. Hence the summon undead line. Also, things as related to the aforementioned gods, like the Hunger Domain is from Dorison, the King of Ghouls. And has this funny-ass spell, the Bite of the King. So, make a touch attack. If they fail the saving throw, they're swallowed whole. To the observer, it appears your maw suddenly opens many times its normal size, after which the victim is engulfed. Your maw is immediately turned to its natural size. This is not the funny part. Of the victim, there's no visible sign. The swollen subject exists in a temporary stomach dimension.
Well, of course. Your stomach dimensions, you can eat people.
We don't even read anything past this. That's just fucking
Gary,
weird.
just admit it. You're into vor. We don't care.
Did you know that each time you cast a spell, you create a separate temporary stomach dimension?
This is that person who took a girl saying that she had a separate stomach for sweets a little too literally.
Let's see. Other things in here. Restoration Mass, which is highly relevant in fighting undead. Is like a level 8 cleric spell, but can be useful if your DM really loves to throw things at you that are going to do ability drain. Also, the other annoying thing about suffering ability damage and ability drain, all the restoration spells have costly material components. Not amazingly costly, but it is just kind of annoying. It is punching the players where they feel it the most in their wallet. Let's see. Also, the summon undead line. As we kind of previously alluded to with True Necromancer. They're pretty much what they say on the tin. It's akin to the summon line, except very narrow in scope, and much more balanced because of it. It still has the problem of you can just kind of keep casting them, and or sometimes just going down a level works, but it's actually its own interesting little list of summons. These spells are evil by default, by the way, because undead are evil by default in 3.5, but if you're making your own world, you might not necessarily want that to be the case, and you can easily just erase evil from these spells, depending on how you want to flavor things. Also, Sorcerer Wizard, even if they are of a good alignment, could still cast these spells with no issue. It's only clerics that actually care about things being evil alignment. Let's see. And let's see. Undead Bane Weapon I put here for some reason. Let's see.
Your weapon on Deadbane.
Yep, makes your weapon Undead Bane. 4th level Cleric is not terrible. 3rd level Paladin. Actually, probably not bad. Oh, it can last an hour level, that's why.
Yeah, that's good duration.
That's just a good duration. So, yeah.
Also, if you decide to do ammo, it does 50 ammo, so...
Yeah, that's pretty normal for any of these buffs. They tend to affect 50 shots. Yeah, also consider good aligned, which is just extra icing on the cake. And again, Bane is like one of the better properties you can actually have on something, so long as you know what you're fighting. And being able to just do it as a spell that, yeah, clerics and paladins just know their entire list, so if they know they're going to be fighting undead, they just pick that up for the day. Okay, and the other notable spells in this section are the spells that come from the Mother Cyst feat. So you take this feat and you get to know all of the Cyst spells. How they work is you cast Necrotic Cyst on someone. If they fail their save, they now have a Necrotic Cyst, and you have various other spells you can now cast on them that do various things. This is not good, but it is horrific and funny. Also, yeah, that art.
Yeah.
Alright, equipment section. So yeah, first thing we run into in the equipment section is Pausotoxins. They're toxins, but they actually work on undead, which are normally immune to stat damage, but this can actually let you do stat damage to undead.
These are... Is this another, like, Ravage?
Sort of, except that it's less stupid. This is just like getting around the fact that undead are normally immune to stat damage, so you can... if the rogue is already incredibly screwed when it comes to fighting undead, so at least it's throwing them a bone as well, because they're usually the ones that use poison. It doesn't help enough, but at least it's something. Especially with the cost of all these things, you're gonna go broke very quickly trying to actually use this as a weapon. On the bright side, if you so in 3.5, if you... I believe if you roll a 1 when trying to poison your weapon, you accidentally poison yourself unless you have
Yes.
a specific class ability.
This knife is coated with a deadly poison. I should not have done that.
It was pretty cool, though.
But yeah, with these, if you roll that 1, yeah, you're fine. These don't affect the living. Let's see. Armors and stuff. Literally, undead armor is just armor composed of various undead or made from various undead. A couple of them were kind of interesting. Ghost Shroud here is straight up with +4 deflection bonus, and makes it so all your attacks are ghost touch. It does preclude you from wearing any other type of armor. Deflection bonuses only ever go to +5, and they're usually, I think they're way more expensive for +5 deflection bonus than that. They are the most expensive AC increaser. This does take up your armor slot, but if you're not wearing armor anyways, because you're like a wizard, it's not terribly bad. Let's see, Vampire Hide. Let's see, +3 stud leather. I think stud leather was one of the better bonus ones. Oh yeah, also has like DR5 silver and magic, which a little on the expensive side, but that isn't terribly. But nothing's overcoming that DR, most likely.
Yeah.
I was only think of highlight there. All the weapon stuff was kind of a highlight, but kind of not at the same time, because it's just like, here's profane. It does. Let's see. Yeah, D6 extra against living for +1 bonus, which is not bad. On the other hand, if you are, let's see, if you're a living creature holding this, you're going to take con damage while you're holding it. So that doesn't work unless you're immune to con damage. If you're undead, it's not a bad property, however, because most things are
it's just
living.
a good property.
Yeah. Sacred.
It's Bane for all living.
Yeah. Well, it's half Bane. It's 2d6 versus good outsiders, which are not really going to fight very
Oh,
often.
that's right. Good outsiders.
Yeah. Sacred, which is actually kind of a good property in general, because it's a d6 versus... It's the inverse, literally, a d6 versus undead. However, it does 2d6 versus evil outsiders, which expands the scope of it greatly. There's still plenty of things it won't affect, but it's not bad for a +1 bonus. Strangely enough, it's actually even better if you're going into the lower planes, or just in general fighting demons or devils in your campaign, because +1 for just 2d6 is pretty solid. They have their burst equivalents. Let's see. As for other magic items, let's see. Rods. Nightstick here, black card. Yes, the Nightstick, which is just straight up, this costs 7,500. Here's 4 more uses of Turn or Rebuke Undead, which you will use for stuff other than turning or rebuking undead. Yeah. Rod of Undead Mastery. Let you control more undead. Yeah, lets you control twice as more undead. Yeah, so you control like 8 times your hit dice in undead, which is again like 10k. If you're actually going that route, not bad. Oh yes, the Deathbound domain, which this set me off on a tangent to figure, because I read the Deathbound domain earlier, and I was like, wait, that doesn't look right with either of the other control-y stuff that I read earlier. So This one is like, your limit for controlling undead animated with spells increases from 3 times your caster level instead of 2 times your caster level. Except explicitly in the spell description, it's 4 times your caster level, and in the Rod of Undead Mastery, it's 4 times your caster level, so I have no idea what this domain does.
Confuse you.
Basically, yes.
Turn
Turn
I
is
don't
your,
know.
Yeah, turn is your cleric level.
Turn is your cleric level, so if it's increasing that makes sense. But
Yeah. I would like to note that the people who actually write books for 3.5 don't always know how the rules of 3.5 work either.
like, especially just above it, you can see the Rod of Undead Mastery, which has normally a caster can't control more hit dice than monsters than 4 times your caster level.
Yeah. Let's see.
It's specifically a domain. Yeah, I don't know. I got nothing.
I don't know either. Let's see. Rod of Defiance, if you actually are using Turn Undead to Turn Undead, pretty much a thing you want, because it's like -4 on turn resistance, Scepter of the Netherlord. Again, basically a +3 to your level when turning undead. You can technically have both of these things if you really want to power game your turn undead. They're also really cheap for that. If you're, I don't know, fighting a zombie horde campaign, or playing a zombie horde campaign or something. Let's see, Goggles of Day. Just fairly cheap way of yes, that's right. This is actually kind of amusing in the sense that, ignoring all of the undead ideas or everything, you can't just use this to basically flashbang the area and just have everyone wear Goggles of Day so they can operate normally. Ghoul Gauntlets, which are as much here because they're unique than anything else. When you wear them, they just, meld into your flesh. Once per round, when you make a touch attack, you paralyze something for a d6 plus 2 rounds. Note that you can deliver. It also lets you deliver or deliver this with unarmed strikes, slams, claws, or similar natural attacks. So not actually a bad gauntlet for like a monk, kind of, sort of.
No.
Except for the fact that it's gauntlets gauntlets are dex. Yeah, gauntlets are dex.
I think the real issue is that the DC is only 13.
Yeah,
so,
the real issue is the DC is only 13.
It's not that expensive though, so low level monk definitely worth grabbing just for pre-paralysis every round. But the DC is going to drop behind pretty quick.
The DC is going to drop behind pretty quick, but does not have limited uses per day, which is usually what happens with these items, which makes them complete junk. So
yeah,
it is at worst, it's a 5% chance that something's going to fail this every round. So it's that's not bad because it's a 5% chance is done, because a d6 plus 2 rounds of paralysis is basically it's dead.
Yep.
And again, it's 10k. And Undead Graphs, as we kind of described earlier, this is, I guess, a type of alternate magic item if you really want to look at it that way, where you craft undead parts onto yourself. Let's see, notable ones. Let's see. Here's Bone Mail. +2 natural armor for 16k. This will stack with anything else that... this stacks with the normal Amulet of Natural Armor, because that's an enhancement bonus to your natural armor, so...
Yep.
Enervane Arm, let's see. +4 inherent bonus to your creature's strength. Inherent bonuses you only normally get from wish spells or tomes of insert stat. And they're not that cheap, actually.
Nope. So getting a +4 strength for 40k is not bad.
Yeah. Also twice per day, an effect you don't care about. Mummified Hand. Let's see. Oh yeah, this is just straight up. I can purchase a slam attack.
Yep.
Slam, it tends to... Yeah. Slam is basically the best type of natural attack, as if it's a primary one, it does strength and a half, and if it's a secondary one, you don't have to have a hand free, you just do it.
Which also means you're something like a fighter. You can go ahead and throw a slam attack on yourself by modified hand, and then get some gloves that paralyze people because those can or the guy can done
Yeah.
on a slam attack,
Yeah, they
and
work
just
on a
throw a
slam.
free paralyzing slam into your rotation. You'd take it'd be
Yeah.
like a -5 because it's secondary attack, but hey, whatever.
Yeah, who cares? A -5, you're still getting most of the time hit
Yeah.
with a fighter. See, paralyzing arm, similar idea to the enervating arm, +4 inherent bonus of strength. This one is a paralyzed for a d6 plus 2 minutes. They are just out of the fight. If they fail to save, it's not likely to happen, but they are just out of the fight. They fail that save, as opposed to just negative levels. That's probably
You just
slightly
want a claw
better.
attack?
Yep.
Something claw.
Skeleton head. Yep, claw attack. Not as good as a slam attack, but yeah. On the other hand, you don't have to worry about accidentally giving people Mummy Rot. Weakening arm, same as the last one, except, yeah, there's not actually a save on this. They just take a d6 strength damage.
Yep.
It's also 40k as opposed to 16k, so there's that. Or no,
Yeah.
these are all 40k. I'm looking at the mummified hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mummified hand is 16 or 16. Yeah, all the stat ones are 40k, but I mean they're all a +4 bonus strength for simply less than the cost. That stacks with like an handsome bonus also.
Yeah. Let's see. New monsters. There be undead monsters in this section, yo.
Shock.
Yeah. Amazing. So, for example, this thing, the Trouble Scion.
Fetus of a dead god.
Divine Flesh given it. No, Fetus of the Dead God is actually in the Epic Level Handbook. This is just dead flesh of a god.
Ah, okay. Just normal dead flesh of a god.
Yeah. A brain in a jar. No more needs to be said. It's a brain in a jar.
Yeah. Brain in the jar. Cool bone snake. Giant bone snake.
Evolved Undead. Which is slightly more creative than just giving it more hit dice, I guess.
Just a template to make more powerful undead and also give them relic ability.
Yep. Grave Touch Ghoul. Which is actually a template. Add to practically anything, so technically you could kind of sort of finagle that all undead are sort of a template, but in a weird way.
We all just templates on the inside.
No, not usually. Half vampires. Also known as slightly more runnable vampires over everything else I just said. They still have a blood dependency. Yeah, they still have a blood dependency, but you're not actually dead per se. There's a +2 level adjustment on this one for not the best stat adjustments.
+2 strength, +2 dex, +2 charisma.
Yeah.
Fast healing, DR silver or magic.
Oh, that's right. They don't actually have to. They gain one of these. Yeah, they don't actually have to have a blood dependency. It is your choice of which of these you want. Yeah, because you only get one of these special qualities.
No?
Or wait, gains no, sorry, you don't get. It's up here. That's right. Okay, special attacks. You retain all your special ability. You gain one of the special attacks described below. If you don't take blood drain, you don't actually gain blood dependency. Yeah. So if you take Charm Gaze or Children of the Night instead.
Ah.
Yeah, if you really insist on wanting to do something vampiric, half vampire is probably one of the better ways to go. It's not great, but it's not terrible.
Yeah, but it also doesn't look like it has the usual, oh god, I'm in the sun, I die instantly like a regular vampire does. So.
Yeah, which is always a positive.
Yeah. Like, is still humanoid and not undead.
Yeah.
Just gets a bunch of undead-like features. A nice way of doing like I'm a vampire type person without being like, okay, I'm not going to give you actual vampire abilities.
Yeah.
I also don't want to deal with like, the party can only adventure at night.
Yeah. In dungeons you're fine, but moving about becomes kind of a pain. Hooded Pupil, which is a template for reasons, but then kind of confuses me. But yeah, this is you're an acolyte of the undead, but not actually undead yet, as a template.
Yep. Only available to giants and humans.
Yep. Just very specific. Why not monsters humanoid?
No, just corporeal giant
Yeah.
or human.
Let's see. Mummified creature, which is a much more tame than actually doing mummy, but still has mummy rot, so yeah. But basically saying you can throw onto stuff other than humanoid, even though humanoid is technically one of them. Okay, Necropolitan, something to actually talk about in more detail.
Oh, my favorite flavor of undead ice cream, Necropolitan.
Yep. So, Necropolitans are as straight a, okay, you just want to be undead and nothing the fuck else as you get. They literally go through a ritual that turns them into undead, and no, that's pretty much it. There's no cravings, no special diet, technically no level adjustment. The ritual involves dying and losing a level.
Yep.
But this is a talk about it with your DM if you're just making a Necropolitan from scratch, and no one should make you lose a level for this. Just let them do it. Because literally, they're just straight up undead. This is a way of actually, like, if for whatever reason you want to qualify for an undead feat or an undead class. None of the undead classes in here are worth it, but you get the point. It's a way of doing it without, like, going too crazy or eating a bunch of different level adjustments or whatnot for it. Let's see. Revive Fossil. Template that can be applied to any corporeal.
Things with skeletons.
Yep, things with skeletons. Bigger things with skeletons. I'm not sure why this wouldn't just be skeleton, but let's not think about it too hard. Alternate skeleton template. Swarm Shifter. This is a template, by the way. Yeah, this is a template that can be acquired on any corporeal undead. They are also a fucking swarm of random fucking creatures.
Yeah.
Sorry, random undead creatures. They can be a swarm of undead beetles.
Well, yeah, you want to make your typical, I'm a mummy, but I'm also a pile of scarab beetles.
Yeah. That's generally the idea, but because it's a template and they actually have more examples I even put here of stuff to do, you can do some really fucking bizarre shit with this one. Okay, and just talking about undead in the campaign. Like, undead as monsters. This really just falls under basic DM advice of like, hey, you can throw undead at your players, just, you know.
Hold on, go back a second.
Huh?
That Illithid is really surprised.
That Illithid is really surprised.
Like, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be like a shine on his eyes, but it totally looks like he's just looking off to the right like, what the fuck is that? Oh. Continue.
Okay. But yeah, pretty much what you expect to find this section. Undead as masterminds, undead theme campaigns, running undead encounters, etc. Special attacks, etc. Stuff they also kind of went over in the front of the book, but here's a nice table to just let you have an idea of what undead will do which things.
I want something that'll do charisma damage. Okay. Some things that do charisma. A skin kite.
Hulathorn, yeah. Skin kite. Why do you want to punish the party for their hubris of dumping charisma?
That's what you get. Now you don't have skin anymore. You should have thought about this.
Ghosts. Some sample ghosts, which is actually somewhat kind of nice, but here's a ghost ape. Here's a ghost Medusa, because apparently...
Why Medusa?
Your guess is going to be. I don't know why.
We have a vampire Medusa. We have a ghost Medusa.
And here's something far more useful. Here's a bunch of generic skeletons of various different types.
Skeleton is a template, but it's nice to have this book just be like, okay, here's a bunch of like kind of standard stuff. as a
Yeah.
while they're actually applying a template to it, just was that before.
Yeah, it's like we've done all the work for you. Furthermore, we actually put this in a pretty condensed profile, so this is actually a lot more usable than you usually get for anything in the monster manual, honestly.
Yep.
Let's see. Cult of Undead, or Cult of Undeath.
Alternate zombies.
Yep. Also alternate zombies, bloodthirsty, fast zombie, disease zombie, unkillable zombie. Which, despite the name, is probably pretty killable. Yeah, that's pretty killable.
That's pretty vincible.
Cult of Undeath, just various undead adjacent things that players could run into a campaign. Unsurprisingly, Vecna gets involved.
The party should get started.
Yep. Adventuring sites. And the back of the book. So yeah, that's pretty much this book.
Oh my.
Yep. And yeah, this is very much what it says on the tin. There's much more in the monster section than I actually wanted to get into per se when it comes to undead, but they are very esoteric. Like, if you want some unique spooky thing to jump out at your players, it's a good place to look, honestly. Other than that, yeah, it's a book.
Book.
I do like the idea of actually being a more. It creates more formal undead, or there are a few things in here that let you that create more formal ways of actually running undead as a player character, kind of as an unintentional side effect of how they wrote the undead monster class rules, and also the necropolitan is a thing. But that's kind of a niche interest, and as far as the DM tool is concerned, there's some flavor stuff, but you also kind of get all the undead flavor you need from just reading its entry in the monster manual, and or it's a fucking zombie. So
but you don't understand. This is a special zombie. Not special zombie. It's
yeah.
Sorry for misleading you.
Yeah. As far as the crunch thing for a DM is concerned, there's a decent amount of ideas in here, so those are kind of neat at least. But yeah, I don't really rate this book too highly, honestly, but it has some neat things. Anyone else have some thoughts?
Not generally. I mean, undead can be a fun idea for a campaign. They're like little spice you add on it, but unless you're running an undead specific campaign, this is more just something you're dipping your toes into.
Yeah.
It does do exactly what it says on the tin.
Yep. All right. And moving on to the next book, because yeah, we should have enough time. Might run a little bit over, but not too bad. So we'll be right back.